Welcome back. Today we have another episode about the topic of saddles, saddle pads, and today we are talking about the Trapezium Pad. It is a very important pad for me in my work, and many of my colleagues are using it as well. We are here with Carlo today. He's a 5-year-old Destano Fürstenball Oldenburg horse. Lara is helping me, making sure he behaves, but I'm sure he would anyway. He is a very modern sport horse. He has been with us for 2.5 years, and he is the perfect example to show you why we have D1 and D2. I often get that question, and many retailers that sell D1 and D2 get asked this by their customers, or they ask me, why do we need a trapezium pad for a saddle that is of such high quality and is so expensive? Shouldn't a saddle like this fit perfectly? There is a very simple answer to that question. No, the saddle is not supposed to fit. The better the saddle fits, the worse it's going to feel for the horse. That sounds very weird, but I will explain. Every time I get that question, I ask back, who do you want the saddle for? For a horse that's standing still or for a horse that moves? And this is something many people do not consider at first, but actually a horse that is moving is completely different to a horse that is standing still. And we often find ourselves in that situation that horses have amazing saddles, even custom-fitted ones, and in this area here, atrophies form. And this is where the trapezius muscle is, in this triangle. This is the thoracic spine, and it reaches into the cervical spine as well. And we often do not have a symmetry. We have a lot of muscle up here, and down there we have a dent. Some people might argue this is the case here, but it actually isn't, because the muscle is this thin. So if there is an atrophy, that would just be a difference of 3 to 5 millimeters. So saying there is an atrophy and the saddle is at fault is a very simple way to put it, but it definitely can occur like that, and these people are rightly observing a reduction up here and that bumps form down there. And this is happening even if the saddle fits perfectly, if it has been fitted, and veterinarians and any other expert on saddles would say, yeah, this saddle fits. But the whole thing is happening because the saddle fits. And some background information on this is that biomechanics haven't really been taken into account when developing the saddle. So if I was to cut Carlo in half, I have the shoulder blades like this, and there is the spine, and the spine is moving freely up and down. There is no bone connection, we don't have a collarbone. It is kept in place with ligaments, tendon, muscles, and so on, but not with bones. So the entire rib cage is able to move freely between the shoulder blades. Horses were only moving a little earlier. We had the straight Hanoverian foreleg. They didn't use their back a lot, but today Carlo can actually move. So the spine is going like this, up and down, a lot. And this affects the entire back. I will show you, or Carlo will show you. Please watch this area here very closely. This is a horse that's standing still. And if I lift him up, you can see that the withers is coming up, and this area here is getting significantly wider. And if he then lowers his croup and places a foot underneath his body, you can see the cervical spine is lowered, and this area becomes super wide. If you then put pressure on here, it becomes very narrow. But this is the movement that we have and how it looks when the horse is moving naturally and using his back. So a horse that moves, a Carlo that moves, is 1.5 or 2 sizes bigger than he is when he is standing still. And this is one of the reasons why custom-fitted saddles don't really get us anywhere, because I don't know of any system or device that is able to accurately measure a moving horse. And I am aware that there is an ongoing discussion about this and that people working on custom-fitted saddles are making or trying to make progress on this issue as well, but as of today we have nothing for the moving horse. So what do? I have a very clear answer to that. We make a saddle that doesn't fit. We make a saddle for the moving horse, not for the horse that is standing still. I have the D2 here, and together with the D1, this is a textbook example of a saddle that is too wide. This is with a size M, that would be 34, 34.5. This is how it looks from the side. Quite nice. But if I were to use this saddle, you can see what is happening. And this is happening because obviously the saddle is too wide. That is the entire idea and concept behind it. I made a video in 2008, I put it on YouTube to explain some stuff about the D1, and I forgot to go into detail about this. I only showed that the saddle is supposed to knot up and down, and because it is too wide, it obviously looks different to a saddle that fits. And I showed that this is elastic, so this is the front girth strip. And many horses have problems with that because, of course, you want to fasten the saddle somehow, but then you restrict the horse's ability to move and to use his back and his withers. And to reduce that, I made it elastic. We have just normal girthing down here, but of course that doesn't change anything about the situation we have up there. And the stirrup bar, this is what the metal bit is called, where the stirrup leather is attached. We moved it super close to the front, even more extremely so with the D2 than we did with the D1, because we wanted the weight of the rider to shift closer to the front, because we all know that we're supposed to sit between the 12th and the 14th thoracic vertebra of the horse, where the center of balance of the horse is. So imagine you're doing a rising trot, your weight is on the stirrup bar, but the saddle has nothing to prop up against. This is happening. You have a seesawing effect, you feel uncomfortable, some saddles slide back. Definitely not how it is supposed to work. And the spot that is becoming wider is super specific to each individual horse, actually. For some horses it's closer to the neck, often is the end of the trapezius muscle. And the abdominal muscles actually play a key role in how this area is lifted up. And it is impossible to determine beforehand where this spot is going to be, and this is our problem. So we can't just say we add some extra padding to the saddle, or we add something to the saddle pad, or we take a lambskin with some extra layers. Anything you can get on the market doesn't do the individuality of the horses justice. And we're only talking about 2 or 3 centimeters that we need. And let's get back to that dent here real quick that some of you think you might be seeing here. When the horse arches his back, then the dent is gone. Because this is the situation that we have when the horse is moving naturally, but actually horses sleep standing up. So if the horse is relaxed, it's totally cool that we have a dent here. So I have the Trapezium Pad right here, and it doesn't look like much, actually. When I was young, I learned riding using something similar because it was quite common in our family to just take some folded cloth. And my grandfather was riding for the cavalry school in Hanover in the 1920s, and they were using something similar as well. So officially, I am the inventor and developer of this pad. And I worked together with Escadron, and we took the Climatex material that is often used in bandage pads, because I had also worked with the bandage pads. I folded them in half, but the problem is they are too short. They don't reach the end of the saddle tree. So we made these pads, and they are placed on the horse like this. If you want, you can loop the strap of the saddle pad through here, but they will stay in place without it. But basically it's just 2 layers of this material, and is finished very carefully so that these ribs don't cross and we don't get any pressure peaks. If you place the pad between the saddle and the horse, many traditional saddlers will be very upset about this, because to them it just doesn't look neat and correct. But actually I am able to see exactly where my horse has this little bump, and I can make sure the saddle is stable and stays wide in the middle. The background is a saddle tree is always V-shaped. So if I want it half a size wider in the middle, and we can all agree this is what we want because we want the moving horse to have enough space. Because the saddle tree is V-shaped, at the front it will be 1 or 1.5 sizes bigger than it is in the middle. And this is causing the seesaw effect. And in order to absorb that, we need the pad. If I put the girth on, I can see that a saddle that was 1.5 sizes too wide for this horse, and we're talking about wither size here, not gullet width. So wither size is how it feels for the horse, so it is a combination of the panel and the tree, any padding that is in place, so the whole package. And the gullet width is just what I measure on the tree, so the distance between the two ends of the gullet plate. And this can vary depending on a manufacturer, but it's important that you distinguish between wither size and gullet width. In this girthing system, I'll just fasten it real quick, and you can see that without even using the front strip, the saddle that was too wide a minute ago is super secure on the horse now. I can show you nothing is moving. Right, Carlo? Yeah. So this is like buying a car. Imagine you want to be modern and you're buying an electric car. And this electric car is working great for what you want and what you need. And then you go out and about and you meet someone that fixes cars that run on petrol. And you're talking to them and you ask him, can you take a look at my car? And he sees the socket. And he will not understand what the socket is for, and he's going to say, oh, this is poorly manufactured, we don't need a socket on a car, because in his world, cars run on petrol, or maybe diesel. And in his world, that is totally fine, which is why he will never understand why we need a socket on a car. For an electric car, actually, the socket is essential. The car doesn't work without it, like a car that runs on petrol doesn't work without an alternator. And this is the connection that we have between the D1 or the D2 and the saddle pad. These two things belong together, like a socket belongs to an electric car. And I know there are a lot of people out there who either did not understand the product, or they are afraid to tell the customer that this is how it is. The pad and the saddle belong together. And then when the saddles are sold and people see world-class riders, there are a lot of them that use the D1 and the D2 actually, and they see Therese Nierhagen at the Olympics and they go like, oh wow, this saddle looks great, I want to buy one. And they go to buy it, and the person selling it says, oh, you don't actually need a pad, I can arrange a saddle fitting for you. And this is not how it works. And I always assumed, because I talked about the importance of the pad so much at the saddle clinics hosted by Prestige and other events, I had always assumed that this information would reach the end consumers, you guys. But this, in a lot of cases, didn't happen. So we're making a video about this pad now, because the pad is the socket. And the pad is essential. Well, sometimes if you have a super beefy Frisian stallion, you might not need it. But it is super rare, and in 99% of the cases, I need a pad. And if the horses grow out of the saddle, if they put on some weight, then you should not remove the pad and go, hooray, I don't need it anymore. You should make the saddle wider, because the horse that moves still needs more space, and because it is wider than a horse that's standing still. This is how the horse moves. And this is completely different to a horse that is standing still. So now I fasten the front strip, and I only needed to guide. So it's important to never make it tighter in the front than the back, because this is elastic. This is how it's supposed to look correctly. You can place it between the saddle and the horse skin directly. The Climatex material is very elastic. And this is the idea of the Trapezium Pad. It's currently available in black and white. I hope to make some progress soon with Eskadron that we can offer different colors. It is used frequently at the moment with conventional saddles, but it doesn't have the same effect there, because if you have a saddle that has a very long gullet plate and is narrower in the middle, you can't make it as wide as you need in the middle, and then to get the same effect you would need 2 or 3 of these pads. So these pads are meant to be used with the D1 and the D2, and this is where they work best. This is not related to the dressage saddle here, but the pad is used in show jumping a lot at the moment, and we went to England and tested it a while ago. We worked with a world-class show jumper and his horse, and we wanted to stay away from the ends of the saddle tree from the gullet plate. So we made the saddle wider intentionally, only to make it tighter again using the pad. So basically undoing our own work, but creating some space in the process. And we found that the horses landed much more relaxed. So horses land using one leg and then they roll over. And someone like me, I weigh 84 kilos at the moment. If I jump 1 meter 40 and I land, we measured and calculated this using computer systems, my weight becomes more than 400 kilos, and this is a lot of weight, and many horses feel stressed and nervous when they land. And this silly little pad prevents so much of this, which is why you see them in show jumping a lot at the moment. But remember, it is part of the D1, it is the socket of the D1 and the D2, and this is what's important, so please use the pad. If you buy a saddle like this, you should get the pad with the saddle. It doesn't cost extra, it is attached to the saddle, and if it isn't, the retailer has removed it. So please ask them to give it to you. Don't be scared. If you buy a saddle and the pad isn't attached to it, something is wrong. And if you get the saddle second-hand, please buy the pad. It's called a Trapezium Pad, and the manufacturer is Eskadron, and it's distributed by Eskadron and Prestige. That's it.